Hi there, Inky Fingers here, and this is Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Now for this little video, I had a request from a subscriber, Mark. Hello Mark. Now Mark asked me if I could have a look at some of his photographs he took from a recent trip to Appelby, which is a small little, really nice little town in Cumbria in northwest England. So he took some photographs and he wanted to see if I could do a rendition of these, one or two of these photographs, how I would interpret these photographs and of how I would actually paint them. But of all the photographs, I quite like these two. One of a castle come stately home, I'm not sure what it is, and another one of a nice pub, the Crown and Cushion. Why did I choose these two photographs? Well, the little, we'll say it's a castle. The little castle here, it's got a nice colours in it. It's quite nicely framed by this tree, and there's not too much detail in it from that distance, so you can't put the detail in, so it might make a nice little simple picture. And the bottom, well, it's a pub, and I always like drawing and painting pubs, but this, it's not the entire pub, it's just the central part. And I always say, if you look at a picture or a building, you don't always have to draw the entire thing, just zoom in on certain parts. And so we've got, of course, the sign, some nice, really nice windows, and the doorway, the main parts of nice parts of a pub. So these are the two photographs I'm going to attempt to paint. Now, how am I going to paint these? Well, we could do something quite detailed, like studio type of work, but no, I'm not going to. I'm going to treat these as if I was actually there in Appelby, standing in the position of that Mark was standing in, and I'm going to paint them, draw and paint them in a very sort of sketchy way, loose way, as if though I was actually, I had my pad and the paint in my hand, and I was just standing there and doing a sketch. Now, when you do sketches of things outside, well, the sketches, they're not meant, or they're not going to be meant to be works of art. Instead of taking a photograph of somewhere where you visit, take a sketch pad. It's going to do a sketch of it, slap some watercolor paint on it or whatever, and that's going to be a far more memorable thing for you to remember where you were than a simple photograph. Now, if I'm outside, I will of course have my outdoor sketching kit, which will be just an A4 sketchbook and my trusty little pouch of pens and brushes and a pencil. Now the pens here are all, well, is a mixture of fountain pens and rollerball pens that use waterproof, fade-proof ink. So you can do a bit of a drawing and then slap some watercolor over it without it worry of the ink sort of going everywhere. So for this, I'm going to be using the pen, the rollerball pen. Normally I would be using maybe it's a fountain pen, but since I've discovered these are just far more versatile. Gives a different kind of mark than a fountain pen, but they're very, very good for just being outside and doing random sketching. And the paper I'm using for this is this Daler-Rowney mixed media paper. It's not watercolor paper, but it's very, very good paper, high quality paper, and it takes pen really well, and of course it can take watercolor washes quite well. This is the A4 version. The piece of paper I'm doing this video on is the same paper, it's just in the A3 size. So what we can do here, a good thing to do anyway, is to just look at your picture, the photograph, or in this case, if you're of course there, the real scene, and just determine where you want to start. So let's, for example, I'm going to start maybe on this point of the castle. So we just need to figure out where that point is. So it's going to be, I'm just going to put just a dot. That's our starting point. And then I'm going to have this point here, the other edge of this curve. So that's going to be we'll put that perhaps about there. And I'm just going to do a very sort of lightweight. See how sketchy this is, even though it's a rollerball? That's because I'm holding the pen. I'm not holding it up here where you're going to get big, distinct, solid lines. I'm holding it halfway and I'm putting the angle, well, you can see it on an angle, so you're just sort of using the edge of the ball, and it's going to be a lot more scratchy. So we've got that, and then I'm going to have the bottom of this tower, which is there, which we'll put that about there, and then we'll just put a mark there, and we put like a mark there. Now we've got this part of the building, which comes in something like that. That comes down to about there. So we're just getting quite a nice sketchy sort of appearance. See, I'm trying to keep all these lines really sort of wobbly. I'm just trying to keep it as sketchy as possible. I was deliberating whether to put the tree in or not, but I will. But because it's only a tree, and it will block, and a nice bit of dark on one side might be nice, but we'll soon see. I've got the main lines in. I just go over. My hand is now a little bit further down the pen, so we get a bit more control, just to make some of these lines a little bit more solid. And that's the outline of this building done. And we can see it's very sort of loose, nice and scratchy because of the angle of the pen. I haven't put the fence here because that might block it in a little bit too much, but now all we have to do is put a few watercolour washes over it. So before I put the washes on, we've got to remember this is not watercolour paper, it's mixed media paper. It can take washes quite well, but obviously you can't use it as you would normal watercolour paper. And also we've got to look at the light source. Now it looks like when Mark was in Appelby it was quite a cloudy day, which means everything's rather flat. So we have to have a think of where you want some sunshine to where we can have some shadows to give it a bit of form in 3 dimensions. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put in a simple sky, and that sky is going to be some cobalt blue and a little bit of cerulean blue, and this is just going to be quite a simple sky because it has to be. Just go around there, the castle, and that's the sky done. Now remembering this is how I would do something if I was actually standing there outside. And then for the castle, well, the castle it can be all sorts of colours. This is in a dull situation, so we can see the colours. And this is my printout. The print is not very good. Chances are it's going to have changed the colours anyway. So we can change this to anything we want, really. So I'm going to mix up some raw sienna. So raw sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to have some olive green with some raw sienna. I just fancy a little bit of green in this, but the raw sienna is going to knock it down to a much more like earthy green. And we'll have a bit of the blue. We've got some of the sky colour there. So there's 3 colours. And you know what? I might just have a little bit in this, a little bit of burnt sienna. And then into the raw sienna wash. And I'm just going to put this all over. Oh, pretty much. I'm going to go over everything because when you're outside, time is the essence. It may start to rain when you're outside. I'm going to go into this bit of blue and just put some blobs of blue in there. Now what the blue's going to do here, because of the colours we've used, the blue is going to mingle with the raw sienna we've just put on, and it's going to change it into more of a grey tone. And you're going to get some really nice cool tones here, like you can see there. Just drop a little bit more of the raw sienna in there, a little bit more blue there, a little bit of the green. We'll stick a bit of the green, this green around here. Doesn't look much green on here, does it? I'll just put a little bit more green into there. So we've got, there we go. So we've got some green here and there. Just mush it around a little bit. A little bit more blue just around here. It's still wet, so we can do what we like. A little bit of blue just around here. A little bit of this red, maybe we'll put a bit of red just around there. So we've just got this basic mishmash of colour on straight away. So now we've got this greenery. So I'm just going to really put a little bit of this greenery along here. Put some of this green in there, stick a bit more blue in, cobalt blue. We stick to the same blue if we can. It's just going to darken it up, make it more of a natural type green, and then maybe a little bit more. And then just blend that into there like so. Let's try and keep in the constraints of our little box. And we'll have some of this. These are leaves, so this must have been maybe the autumn. So I'll just have a little bit of this burnt sienna just in there like so. And that's really, apart from the tree, which I don't want to put the tree in yet because it might actually run into the castle. But that's pretty much, as you can see, it's all done. It's been a very, very quick application of colour. As I said, you've got to be quick outside. The castle, we've got lots of different colours, but now this is actually drying a little bit. I will put a touch more blue here and there, especially as I think I'm going to put the sunshine on the right hand side. So the sun's coming down here, so everything on this side, we're going to have a bit of a shadow, so we may as well put a little bit more blue in or on this part of the building, and even a little bit on this side, because this tower is, of course, it looks curved, so on that curve it will have a bit of a darker area. So we'll just plop it on like so, and then we leave that dry. Okay, now this the picture's dry. You can see how much lighter it's got. Now I can put another wash over the castle. Now yes, even though it's not watercolour paper, if you're careful you can put a couple of washes over this, no problem. The only thing is we can see it does time to cockle, but that's expected. So I've just mixed up some more raw sienna, and I'm going to just make this, actually I think I put a little bit of this cadmium yellow into this raw sienna, and just put this on this, which is going to be the sunlit area of the castle, which is going to be all of this. Now technically this part there is going to be in shadow. I'll just blend that in like so, and these areas on the right hand side will be in sunlight. And then I'm just going to pull that across like so, but I'm going to drag that around with a little bit of clean water. Drop some water in, just drag it around, just so it's going to be hopefully a little bit patchy here and there, and not just one flat wash, because this is quite smooth paper, so we don't really want absolutely smooth washes if you can handle it. Try and leave some little gaps here and there. I'm going to have some, again, some raw sienna. This is for the tree. Now I don't want anything really colourful for the tree or detailed. I'm just going to put some raw sienna. I'm going to try some Payne's grey, and that's going to make a little bit of burnt sienna and all. I just want a very sort of blacky brown colour. And being careful not, if we can, to sort of go into the castle itself. We may go put a few little more small branches just here and there, just a tad, with a rigger. This is a number 7 round, and it's a bit too big to do the smaller branches, but we shall stick that there. I will just get this is a number 1 Daylon rigger, nylon, and let's just put something off there like so. Now I can't go over that because it's that the castle's still wet, but I may go over this a tad when it's dry, just so it pushes the castle into the background. And once again, we'll have to let that dry. So now I'm just going to go into, I'm going to just darken up the foreground a little bit. So with the same sort of green I put in for the foreground, and I'll just try and do some, of course you can't do dry brush on this paper, impossible, this is not watercolor paper, so I'll just do a few little bits and bobs just to give a little bit of darkness in the foreground there. I might even just put a little bit of this tree colour right in the foreground, just to darken this tiny area up. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a shadow. Now the shadow colour I've mixed is cobalt blue, burnt sienna, and a touch of like a crimson colour, just a cool red. So I want this quite sort of it's not a bright, it's not a vivid colour. And all I'm going to do here now is to put, we're going to have all of this here in shadow. I don't want it too dark. We'll have shadow going across there. And then because this is curved, we need this shadow softened. So just dampen the brush off and then just pull that around a little bit, just so it looks like it's a curve. We need a little bit of shading on there. This is going to have shading on, and that's going to have some shading on there, because this is protruding from the tower, so it's going to have a shadow. We'll put some dark just on around here. So now the picture's dry, so I'm going to now have to put some windows in. Well, so the windows, obviously, it's only a small sketch, so we're not going to put real details in. So I'm just going to put some cobalt blue and some Payne's grey, just to make a dark. And then all we do is paint in a representation of some dark windows. And now, just to give it a little bit of texturizing on the building itself, the brickwork or the stonework, I've just got a little bit of on my little rigger, some raw sienna, and I'm just going to try and put, might need a little bit more water on that. Just a few little blobs here and there, just to make it look like we've got some stonework. Doesn't have to be much. Remember, this is really either a working sketch for us to do something later on in the studio, but generally it's going to be just we're on holiday and we've taken our sketching paraphernalia, and instead of maybe taking lots and lots of photographs, which will then sit on a hard drive for forever and not being looked at ever again, which is generally the case for lots of people, we can just take out our sketch pad, our paints, our pens, and just do a few little simple sketches that don't have to be brilliant. It's the experience of being there, and it's something you will look at in the end, a lot more than looking at photographs anyway. And when you look at these sketches you've done on location, those memories will flood back a hell of a lot more than just looking at a little photograph. A little bit of splatter is always nice, even if you did something outside, because it's just so easy to do. Then just go back to the pen, and then we can just, like I said, we can go over just make some of the lines a little more heavier here and there. And that's this little sketch finished. Quite quick, very, very loose, no real details. It's very much like an atmospheric watercolour sketch. I've changed the atmosphere from a grey day to a nice sunny day. It looks like the sun is sort of setting on this because I put some warm tones on. Now the second picture, there's not much colour there. So what we'll do here is we'll just simply, again, it's just going to be very simply drawn in. There's the roof of the roof there, the drain pipe, now as we know, a window is simply a rectangle, and we've got another rectangle, oh, says about there. And then we have another rectangle going somewhere down there. And then we have the floor, which is, I would say it's about up there, or down there I should say. It doesn't have to be exact because again this is just a working sketch, and a holiday atmospheric type of sketch. Then we have the doorway is somewhere like this, and then a window is level with the door, and that starts about there, goes to about there. We have this grey area going across there, and then this window sort of goes to there, and then we have another rectangle. So I always say everything is just a rectangle. We'll put the top of the roof in like so. We've got a little bit of a chimney. Shame we couldn't see all of the chimney, but never mind. The roof tile like so. And then we have this black wooden outer frame. We have some sort of notice board. Again, very sketchy, very loose. The lines are not straight, so I want to keep it as sketchy as possible. So once again, a simple sketch. Now it's time to actually put some colour on it. So first off, it's not much colour in this, so we've got some grey, slaty grey tiles. So that's going to be ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna. Sorry, cobalt blue, not ultramarine. That's going to give us this sort of silvery grey tile, and I'm just going to paint that over like so, and then get a little bit of burnt sienna and just drop that in here and there and let it mingle together. Then also we'll try the green, the olive green. Put a little bit of this colour in to darken it up, and then I shall just do a little bit of this green just on the bottom of the tiles. Make it look like it could be moss or something. Now remember, this isn't watercolour paper, so just let it do what it wants to do. Now we'll have the pavement. Again, that's just going to be a little bit, in this case, a little bit of raw sienna. And a little bit of this blue we've just used in there, or a bluey green, doesn't really matter. And we'll just put that over like so. That could serve as a nice little underwash. Now the window frames look like they're black. So if they're black, I'm going to use some Payne's Grey and Cobalt Blue, just to make it like a bit of a bluey black. And then now the sign is a weird colour, a colour that I don't have in the palette, and normally I wouldn't really be taking white ink or white paint out on a location. So with this, I'm going to change the sign colour to, try changing it to this, just this light green. A little bit of colour. And then for this, I suppose it's painted wood. That's a very neutral type of grey. So all we're going to use here is the grey I've used for this, with just a hell of a lot more water in. Now for the windows in this building, because we've got lots of black there, I'm going to paint these in a blue colour, Cobalt Blue, just so it looks like it's reflecting the sunshine, blue sky sort of, basically. We've got a doorway here. I really don't know what colour the door is, so I'll just do this a slightly darker green just to match the signage. Next. Now the windows are drying a little bit. I'm just going to put some Payne's Grey into the Cobalt Blue. The tiny brush, I'm just going to drop a little bit of that colour into this rapidly drying wash. Just to make it look like you're also seeing a little bit of the dark inside, and it gives it just a bit of texture to each window pane. We've got the inside of the pub. It is very dark, so I'm just going to put some dark in there, and also while I'm at it, put some dark on the door there. Acts as a little bit of a shadow, and just pull that out with a little bit of water, just so the light is just sort of catching in the front of the door, but as we go into the pub it gets darker. Now back into the dark with the rigger brush, and I'm just going to do a little bit. It looks like there might be some sort of detail there. a little bit of dark under here. Just again, so it looks like there's a bit of shadow. Now I'm going to put the shadows in. Now there's not going to be too many shadows in here, but I'm still going to have the sun coming from this area because we can see they have already put the door in shadow. So I've mixed in this one a purple colour, a dull purple colour, and be brave. And I'm just going to paint all of this area which is underneath the eaves in this colour. Now this is going to have some sort of shadow from this onto there, so I'll just put something like that. I'll put this matching colour all into this area here. We're going to have some shading on this end or this side of the window, same as on there. And now we have to put the sign in. It looks like more like a golden colour on the photograph. We don't have gold, so we could try a little bit of yellow ochre. This might be a little bit too light though. And once again, we get our pen, and I would also always just have a look at it once all the washes are on, and then just, if I need to, just go over parts. Emphasize a few of the lines, make them even more sketchy. I think probably in this case go over. And that's it. There's two little sort of watercolour sketches. Both these photographs are quite taken in, it looks like a dull day. So they've got no light, no real colour. So in my interpretation of just of that photograph, blue sky, low setting sun. It's not detailed, it's just an impression of what we see. Same with the Crown and Cushion pub. Yes, the colours aren't correct because I don't have the colours in the palette, but again I've just made it nice and sunny, very sketchy, very loose. And if I had this in my outdoor sketching book, say I went to Appelby on a little holiday and I sat outside and drew something like this in my outdoor painting book, then I'd be quite happy with a simple little sketch like this. You've just got to be prepared to change things, add a few more colours, make it a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more dynamic, change the weather conditions if they're not very good when you get there. But as the summer is rapidly approaching, the days are getting a little bit warmer now and longer. I'm sure everyone will be out there with a little sketching pad, maybe a few paints, a few pens, and they'll be doing lots of little things like this in their books. So that's it. So until next time, I'll see you then. So goodbye.